Welcome to the Heidi Thorne Show. I'm your host, Heidi Thorne, and in this podcast, I share my real-world self-publishing and small business experience with you. Before we get started, I just want to remind you to like, comment, share, follow, and subscribe. Now let's get on with today's show. As I scroll through Pinterest, I'm amazed at the creativity of so many crafters, needleworkers, and artists. How do they come up with these things? And some of these talented individuals have taken to offering their how-to information to others, sometimes for money, sometimes for free on social media. If you're one of these crafters interested in sharing and selling your project ideas, and you want to do a self-published craft book, there's a lot you need to consider. First, let's talk about instructions for instructions. I didn't misspeak there. It's been said that you never really learn something until you have to teach it to someone else. This definitely applies when writing a craft book. Experienced crafters have become so skilled that they often forget what it's like to be a rank beginner. If you have never attempted writing craft instructions, take a video of yourself doing the work at all key project stages. Then view the video and write down each action as you see it's happening on the screen. This will help you identify steps that you now do without even thinking. For step-by-step instructions, each step should appear in a logical order and leave some space between each step. This makes it easier for your readers to follow the progress. And beta readers familiar with your craft can be a huge help. So hire these beta readers or reach out to your crafting family and friends to see if they can understand your instructions. A mix of people who are experienced and less experienced would be really helpful as you go through this review. What about pictures? I'm embarrassed to say that I have way more crafting books, like hundreds, than projects I've actually completed. I'm hooked on looking at craft instruction books with all the cool ideas I want to try, maybe someday. Part of that enjoyment comes from looking at all the beautiful and inspiring photos of the completed projects. Photos are illustrations of both step-by-step instructions and the completed project, can be integral to readers' satisfaction with the book and the project. The necessity for step-by-step photos will also depend on the skill level of the reader that you're trying to reach. Beginners generally need more step-by-step photos and illustrations than advanced crafters. An example to illustrate would be crafts such as crochet and knitting. Instructions for these crafts rely on symbols, abbreviations, and text, and experienced needleworkers are used to seeing those abbreviations and symbols. So photos would be unnecessary in a step-by-step way for those people. Also, to have photos for the completion of large expanses of the project would be redundant to the point of annoying for skilled needleworkers. In these situations, photos and illustrations would be reserved for explanation of unusual or difficult instructions and to showcase the completed project. Black and white photos or color in craft books. Many books in my I'd like to make that someday craft book collection are several decades old. One thing that distinguishes older craft books from recent entries is the use of illustrations versus photos. Many years ago, printing photos was quite an expensive option that required commercial printing. So many craft instruction books from years ago and leaflets were mainly black and white line-drawn illustrations, even of the techniques and the finished pieces. Photo use was often reserved for showcasing the completed project only. And in many cases, even these showcase photos were black and white. Today, printing photos, even full color, is much more affordable for even self-publishing print-on-demand books. However, realize that color printing of interior book pages is still an expensive option, sometimes up to 3 times or more of the price of black and white. Note that you cannot mix full color and black and white photos in a self-published book in the hopes of saving money. You're either going to have to do all full color or all black and white, even if you want black and white photos in there. Black and white photos would just print with what they call the black plate. That's all you would have on those pages. It would just be black and white. So you can't pick and choose, okay, I'm going to pay for that full color page and I will pay for a black and white page there. Doesn't work. Though color printing can be a huge cost factor, you have to weigh that cost against whether it could be a deciding factor in purchasing the book by your readers. If books that compete with yours are printed in full color, your book could be passed over if its pages are in black and white. So you have to look at your market. Your self-published craft book should look just as good as your finished craft projects. Kindle Direct Publishing, which I talk a lot about, or KDP, has some really good printing. There are some people who argue that, but my printed books, print on demand through KDP, are amazing. And I always make sure that I use the highest quality photos I can. And so the minimum for photos in these books should be around 300 dpi. That will make them sharper and look really good. So what about craft ebooks? Unlike print books, ebooks can contain photos and images, color black and white, without too much difficulty. But included photos still need to be of sufficient quality to not appear pixelated on the screen. Realize too that the more photos you place, additional fees may be assessed for larger ebook electronic files. You're going to have to see your self-publishing platform's documentation for the requirements and fees. On KDP, they do have a file size fee. So if you have a book, it might not be so many pages, but if you have a book that's cover to cover photos and they're high quality ones, that file size fee on KDP could go up, and that does cut into your royalties. Another caveat for photos in Kindle ebooks is do not wrap the text around them. Yes, you can probably do that in Microsoft Word or wherever you're laying that out, but because ebooks are reflowable text, that will mess it up so much that your readers are going to be angry. So you usually want to do your text, put a photo, put more text, photo, more text. So it may look a little clunky to you, but when they see it on the screen, it will be much clearer for them to read. In terms of pricing, you want to make sure that you price your book competitively with other craft books that are similar to yours on the market, but you want to make sure that it's profitable too. And we've talked about that in other places. You need to be concerned about your overhead, your profit margin, and the cost to create your craft book. This is a big, big no-no. Do not use copyrighted images, brand names, or themes. When I scan Etsy or Pinterest, I run across a lot of craft projects and instructions that use copyrighted images or themes. Disney, Marvel, DC Comics, you name it. Just as you would be mad if someone either copied your design or denied you the opportunity to earn royalty income from your designs, these creators and companies feel the same way. Some of these organizations can also be very aggressive in suing people who use their images or themes without permission. But these image owners and companies are not just protecting their income. They don't want people to think that they have any affiliation with these unapproved or unauthorized uses. On a similar note, product brand names in book titles. For example, the brand name craft product sewing book can suggest affiliation or approval that doesn't exist either. This can get very messy from a legal standpoint, so don't do it. You have enough creativity to come up with an amazingly original work, right? Here's more legal issues with craft books. Because of the variety of skill levels of readers, it would be very difficult to guarantee results from following any of your instructions. So you'll need to consider developing, with an attorney's help, disclaimer statements about the results to help your readers avoid disappointment, even danger, depending on the craft being discussed. And what if you make a mistake in writing the instructions? It happens. Luckily, most self-publishing platforms, such as KDP, allow you to upload the corrected manuscripts. But even with that ability, it's wise to consult an attorney about errors and omission statements to include. Another legal issue that many crafting designers face is that other crafters use their designs for commercial use. In other words, other crafters make these projects and sell them online at craft fairs, etc., without royalties or even attribution to the designer. This decreases the income that the craft designer could realize. So again, consult an attorney to develop copyright and prohibited use statements to include to help protect your design and your income. And here's another big problem: crafts for kids. Books on crafting for kids are even more challenging because it's not just reading level that you're dealing with. You have to know if that child's reading level will help them understand and implement the instructions. And you may also need to recommend supervision by adults while they're doing the projects. Think about the craft tools that are involved in your particular craft. Cutting tools, maybe needles, hot glue guns, paints, adhesives. Oh, the list of potentially hazardous craft tools and materials for children doing these crafts is almost limitless. Consult an attorney, again, for appropriate statements to include about craft safety issues, age appropriateness, and needs for adult supervision. Amazon or Etsy? If you use Amazon KDP, you'll be able to sell your craft book on Amazon. Undeniably, the world's leading online bookseller. But as with any nonfiction book, you need to develop a title, subtitle, and description that will help your book get found in search. But what about Etsy? Crafters do sell their designs on Etsy because it's popular with both craft buyers and crafters. Some also promote their Etsy offerings on Pinterest, especially if they have great project ideas. If you decide that you want to offer your patterns and instructions on multiple sites, such as both Amazon and Etsy, make sure that there are no exclusive arrangements that would bar you from doing so. For example, as of this writing, if you use Amazon KDP for your ebook, it is a non-exclusive arrangement that allows you to offer your book in multiple retail venues, both online and offline. However, if you do enroll that craft book title in KDP Select so that you can take advantage of some of their other programs, you will be prohibited from selling that book on any other platform because it does require exclusivities. So see the terms of service for any site where you plan to sell these craft books. Well, as a recovering crafter, I've decided to sell off a good chunk of my archive of crafting and needlework books, and I'm doing that on eBay. My username is ThornCom. There's the link to my eBay profile, and as you're looking through my profile and my offerings, click on Save This Seller so that you can see all the new stuff that I am putting on there. I initially started out with over 150 different books on crocheting, knitting, needlepoint, and other crafting. And as I have new things, I will post them there. So do check it out. I hope you found that helpful, and if you did, please rate, review, and subscribe to The Heidi Thorne Show on whatever podcast platform you like to use. I'm on all the major ones: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean. Pick your favorite, I'm probably there. If you like the YouTube video better, just subscribe to my Heidi Thorne YouTube channel and turn on the notification bell so you get an alert when a new video is up. I would appreciate it if you would share either the podcast audio or the YouTube video with your friends on social media. And if you'd like to see my self-published books, they are on Amazon, Audible, and Apple Books. All you have to do is type in my name, Heidi Thorne, and a list of all of my available books will be listed there. And speaking of crafting and hobbies, if you haven't checked it out already, I have self-published the Daylily coloring book, and it is available on Amazon. If you'd like to connect with me, my website is very simply HeidiThorne.com. If you'd like to follow me on social, do so on Instagram or TikTok at @HeidiThorne. Thank you so much for listening and for your support. I'll look forward to talking with you again in the next episode, and in the meantime, have a great day.